You know what you should do? You should follow me on Twitter at Brommer018. Link in the description. Do it now. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you're all doing well. It's Ash here, aka Brommer. And today we're taking a look at another tactic for our FIFA 21 Tactics series. This is the series where I show you how to recreate and adapt real life systems in-game so that they'll actually work for you in FIFA 21 and recreate them as effectively and realistically as we possibly can. Today, we're switching our focus back to Ligue 1 of France and we're taking a look at Christophe Galtier's Lille tactics. They have just won the league for the first time in 10 years. They've broken PSG's 9 title streak, so congratulations to them. A fantastic achievement, remarkable in fact. I don't think anyone saw this happening. I don't think anyone saw PSG not winning a title for the considerable future, but Lille have done what seemingly was impossible, so congratulations to them. It is a 4-4-2 and it's one that I've really enjoyed recreating and playing with as well. So first things first, if you're new here, what we do is I will show you the formation, any position changes, and then we'll talk about the actual tactics. We'll go in depth on them, and then we'll finish off with the player instructions. I'll go through each one, explain what we do, why we do it, and also at the bottom right hand corner I will also suggest suitable players for you to sign if you are using this tactic on career mode, for example. So other than that, let's get straight into it. First things first, the system itself based around possession, keeping possession, also trying to hurt the opposition with clever movement. It's very much based around movement, and we'll go into that in more detail later on in the video. But first things first, 4-4-2, we've gone for the 4-4-2 holding, as you can see here. And the reason why we've done that rather than the flat is just because we want a bit of extra protection for our defence, and we've only 2 central midfielders rather than 3. You would prefer, ideally, for these to be defensive midfielders because the game will then offer you that little bit more protection. With the position changes, we just have 2, and that's the 2 fullbacks. We've actually changed these from right and left back to right back, right wing back, and left wing back. We do that just so they'll get wide. These are essentially going to be the ones who create the most width in the team. What you'll find is that the 2 wingers will cut inside and join the front 4 and the central midfield 2 as more of those central targets really, and helping the build-up play that way. So the wide areas will generally be taken by these 2 wing backs, and with them at wing back they'll just get a bit wider and a bit further forward as well. So that's very, very handy. Other than that though, there's no position changes. You can keep the rest as they are, and we can move then into the tactical style. So first things first, with the defensive side of the game, we have press after possession loss. Very much about counter pressing in this side. You don't want to be looking to press all the time, because then you'll get too many players being dragged out of position, and when you're in a 4-4-2 you really don't want that, because naturally there's less options for you and more space being created for the opposition, in particular in those central areas. So we look really to counter press. It's something that serves them very well. And then moving on into the width, we have this all the way down to 1. Again, with the whole 4-4-2 formation, naturally you've got less players in those central areas, so you want to try and crowd out those central areas as much as possible, which is what they look to do. They're happy to try and force you out wide, because then the opposition will generally be essentially forced into crossing balls into the box, and then you leave the likes of Jose Font, for example, and Botman to deal with those, and deal with them they will, because they're very tall, they're very good in the air and commanding. So you just don't want the opposition being able to play through you. So down to 1 and they come as narrow as possible, and it will be harder for them to do that with your 4-4-2 system. With depth, we have this on 7, so it's still classed as a mid-block on FIFA, but it's as high as mid-block as you possibly can. So you've got a little bit of support for your counter press, but you don't want to be pressing all the time, as we've spoken about. Therefore, there's not really any need to have such a high line. So you can have more of a less passive mid-block in this case, with it up to 7, and that will serve you the best really and replicate what they do the most. Offensively, first off, we have this on possession. They're very much about playing it up from the back, working through the thirds despite it being a 4-4-2, because you're going to have those extra support with the wingers coming into the central areas, with Jonathan David dropping back, as we'll talk about shortly. So you very much got a system that's tailored around possession. They're going to be offering lots of quick, short passing exchanges. That's one thing that you'll find, a lot of quick interchanges, 1-2s, stuff along those lines, but we'll get into that shortly as well. With width, this is down to 3 again, because you want to complement the fact that the wingers are going to be coming more centrally, and it's really going to be the wing backs who are creating the predominant amount of the width. Therefore, what you find with it on 3 is that they will do that. We'll obviously adapt their instructions and change their instructions as well alongside this, so that we get that sort of emphasis on them drifting inside, but this does also help and play a part with that as well. With players in the box, this is up to 7. And that means you'll have 3 to 4 players getting into the box. So naturally, you're generally going to have the 2 strikers, or you're going to have Yilmaz, for example, and then 2 of the wingers, for example, getting into the box. But you want a few targets as well. Maybe another one drifting in occasionally on top of that. So there's going to be a few targets for you. But generally what they're going to look to do is they're going to look to work the ball into the box in those occasions. Maybe getting into the byline, cutting it back, maybe sort of drifting in with those sort of short interchanges that we just mentioned as well. So there's a bit of variation there, and there's a lot of targets for you to get that into the box. Finally, with corners and free kicks, what we always do in these videos is we move them up to 4. And it means you've got more targets in the box to bring greater threat and provide a greater opportunity for you to score, but then you've still got 2 players back, and then another 1 or 2 outside on the edge of the box, preparing for any opposition counter-attacks that may form. So you really deal with both situations very, very well. Moving on to the player instructions next. What we do in these, if you are new, is we'll start with the keeper and we'll work our way through the field, and I will suggest suitable players on the right hand side for you to sign along the way. So, first things first, with the keeper, we have comes to crosses and sweeper keeper, and it's predominantly the same throughout these videos, really. One with comes to crosses because it will just mean that they're less passive, and therefore it relieves the pressure on you a little bit when the opposition are putting crosses into the box. Keepers are fairly well protected on this game, so it is worth bearing that in mind. And with sweeper keeper as well, because you've got a sort of high mid block, I guess, with it being on 7. You know, you've got something where the keeper might be required to come out a little bit more. There might be some balls over the top, and in which case he can deal with that, and he'll be in the best position to deal with that with him on sweeper keeper. On to the 2 centre backs. Leave this as it is. No need to change it. One thing I would say is, despite the fact that obviously in real life they're very, very good, Font and Botman, they're relatively slow, and that's something that on FIFA will just sort of hinder you a little bit, particularly when the opposition are putting in through balls in behind to pacey strikers. You know, that will be a little bit of a hindrance. So unfortunately you would want to try and swap these preferably. But at the same time, though, they're very, very good at what they do, playing it out from the back, and also dealing with those crosses. They're good in those situations, so it is also worth bearing that in mind. Next up, with the wing backs, we have this on join the attack and overlap for both of them. As we spoke about earlier, we can go into a little bit more depth now. They are the ones creating the most width. Occasionally, they might cut inside. And what will happen is then the winger will come out wide, but the thing is, you can't recreate that on the game. Unfortunately, you can't get those players interchanging, so you have to stick with one or the other. And so really what we've opted to do here is to get those wingers coming inside, because that's the most important thing, the fact that when you're going forward, you're getting those players who are coming into those central areas and providing that those options in those half spaces. So we've got the 2 wing backs on join the attack and overlap, and they'll be the ones on the touchline creating the most width. Next up, with the 2 central midfielders, what we got here is Renato Sanchez and Andre. Now, of course, there are a couple of players who have been in and around here, Samare being one. But we opted for Renato Sanchez because he gives us a better dynamic on FIFA. And the reason being, obviously, he's got that high work rate, but also lots of energy and very all-rounded. Have a look at his physical stats. You guys can't see them, but they're all in green, which is very, very impressive and very important for that sort of role. So it's something that, on FIFA does lend itself to favouring that sort of option. With defensive behaviour, they're both on cut passing lanes. As we spoke about, man marking doesn't work on this game, but also when you're playing with a 4-4-2 anyway and you might be outnumbered in the midfield, you're generally going to have to cut the passing lanes anyway, because you can't go man to man when the majority of teams are playing three central players, players in the centre of midfield. So therefore you are going to try and cut passing lanes to try and even the numbers up that way. And with attacking support, stay back while attacking as well. Naturally, when you've got four men going forward and then the wing backs overlapping as well, you need a little bit of protection for your defence. So generally, these guys are going to stay back. Now, what I will mention is sometimes you'll find that they do get forward, but when they do, it's because they're on the ball. So what you'll see from me on the gameplay on the right-hand side is that whenever, say, for example, I was Sanchez and I was getting forward with him, it's because he's on the ball. So therefore, he'll drive forward with the ball and add another dimension to your attack that way. But generally, when it's off the ball, let's say in crossing situations, for example, these guys will not be bombing forward, and you don't want them to either. You want to offer that little bit of protection and the attacking players really doing their job in that sense. And finally, with the defensive position, you want both of these on cover centre. And the reason being is that obviously, when you've got these guys being dragged out wide, for example, what you'll find is that then naturally you can have spaces opening up in the central areas of the park, and that's not what you want in this 4-4-2. So keep them out into the centre, and then if the opposition do look to exploit the space down the wide areas, fine, let them do that. But then at some point they've got to come into the middle, and then they've got really this block of four players who are ready to sort of combat that. So you want both of these covering the central areas. Next up, with the wingers, we've got them both on the same instructions yet again. First off, come back on defence. That one, is fairly obvious. And then with chance creation, these are on cut inside. So as we've already alluded to, and I can build on now, is that these guys are going to come and join these central areas, come into those half spaces really on either side to support the central areas, because naturally you've only got two central midfielders. What it's also worth bearing in mind though, and that will come on to support runs next, is we've got this on balance. We don't always want them getting in behind. We also need that penetration in behind as well sometimes. So we've got it on balance rather than come short or get in behind. But what I will say is that really when it comes down to the movement, that should be down to you to control it. So if anyone's been sort of glancing at the gameplay on the right hand side every so often, what you'll find is that generally their movement is being created by me. So let's say I've got the ball with Bamba or Ikone. I'll press LB and A or L1 and X, depending on your console. Play it off, and then obviously that will make them move. It will do a 1-2. It will do a give and go. And that's what you want. You want to create the movement as much as possible. Get lots of short interchanges going, lots of movement, and then you create the penetration. And that's really the best way you're going to do it, and the most effective way to do it as well. And that's very much how they look to play Lille. They're very much a case of lots of short interchanges, but the movement is based on them playing off the ball. And so you've got the two strikers as well, particularly David, who's going to drop in and support them as well. So there's a lot of movement, but it comes from the whole possession, a lot of quick interchanges, innovative, intelligent, and sort of improvisation. They do improvise in times, but generally it's about movement and give and goes. So do bear that one in mind. And finally, we support on crosses. We have this on getting to the box for crosses as well. So next up, we have Jonathan David. Very, very impressive season for him. First off, with support runs, again, this is unbalanced. As we've just alluded to with the wingers, you're generally going to be controlling that movement. You want him to be doing lots of give and goes. But he will also, drift wide, come centrally. He will get in behind when he needs to as well. And with false 9 here, as you can see, he will, as we mentioned, alluded to again, he'll drop in. He'll look to bring support, particularly when you've only got two central midfielders. He'll look to essentially play that hybrid role between an attacking midfielder, a striker, you know, such as what a false nine will do. And therefore he can bring the extra support, and then when you've got the likes of Ikone and Bamba running in behind, he's the one who's looking to provide the passes and provide that support and protection in behind on the edge of the area. Finally, with defensive support, come back on defense just to help your guys out a little bit. Generally, when you do play a 4-4-2, you will find that usually at least one of the strikers will be sort of tracking back and helping out that block, that defensive block. So he is the one to come back. Finally, with Burak Yilmaz, of course, having a fantastic season for Lille, scored lots and lots of goals, and there's not really a lot you need to worry about here. First off, with support runs, stay central. That's the most important thing, because he's essentially the target man. He is a poacher. That's how he scores the 2 goals for us in the game. Very much just picking up good positions in the box and being there to tap it in, really. With attack runs, you can leave this unbalanced again. And there's a lot of that in this formation. And part of that is, again, as we've spoken about, how really you're looking for you to create the movement rather than the players. And then with defensive support, stay forward. So he'll be that out ball for you and that outlet when going forward. He can hold up the ball. He can run in behind sometimes. But what the most important thing is that he is staying forward, looking to be that sort of target up the field. And then you can play off him with the runners and the clever and fast movement of David, Bamba, Ikone, etc. So that is very, very important. Other than that, though, we can finish it off there. That really is the tactic. If you've got any questions about it, then do let me know in the comment section. As a sort of roundup, like I say, a very enjoyable tactic, one that I liked playing with, I liked creating. Very, very fun indeed. Very different to one that we've done so far, to be honest. This is a very unique sort of tactic compared to all the ones that we have covered on the channel. So very much a tactic that I think you guys will probably enjoy as well. Some housekeeping notes: do be sure to go and check out my second channel, Bromma Ball, where we talk all things real football. Got lots of stuff planned, so do go and check that one out. The link is in the description. Do give me a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. Link for that is also in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Ring the bell so that you get notifications every time I upload. Leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. And on that note, we are going to finish it off there. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I will see you soon.